Leadership training doesn't work, at least not the way most people think it does. If it did, we wouldn't have so many managers and supervisors go through leadership training and still struggling with having difficult performance conversations, how to foster strong team spirit, and not be frustrated with people management issues. You've been there before, right? You attend some leadership training, take some notes, maybe end up feeling inspired. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go back and actually lead differently. And then a few work days later, nothing changes. You're still managing and leading and responding or reacting to situations the same way and still avoiding that same difficult conversations. So, did the training fail? Because here's the thing. Leadership training doesn't change you. Practice does. And if you don't understand this, stop going for more training because nothing will work for you. You've been leading, managing, or supervising a team for a while, and you're still unsure about what you're doing. Your company sends you for leadership training. You sit there for 1 or 2 days. The leadership trainer or facilitator shares frameworks, concepts, models, and explores different leadership styles. You learn about communication and practice having difficult conversations using case studies. In the classroom, you're thinking, yeah, this is good. I can use this at work. It all makes sense. You leave the room feeling more confident, aware of what you have to do, and prepared. Then you go back to work the next day and reality hits you. Your team member pushes back, while another keeps quiet and doesn't say much. A third is not delivering to expectations. All different types of conversations you have to have and requiring different approaches to resolve them. Suddenly, all the frameworks you learned no longer applies. You go back to what feels natural to you. You avoid the tough conversations to the team member who pushes back. Soften your message to the one who was quiet, or became more directive to the underperformer than intended. You realize that while you understood the training, you just couldn't apply it. This is where the doubt starts to come in. You think, maybe I'm not meant to be a leader. I need more training, or I'm not good at this. That's not the problem. The real problem is that we've been taught to think that leadership is something you learn. But in fact, leadership is something you learn, then do. And you do a lot. There's this model called the DIKW pyramid, which represents increasing levels of understanding and application of what we know. Data, raw, unorganized facts and figures. Information, data with context and meaning. Knowledge, information that is synthesized and applied. Wisdom, evaluated knowledge applied to make decisions. Leadership training, at the very least, gives you information on frameworks, concepts, and models. And that's useful because you need to have a more nuanced understanding of leadership to be effective. High quality training will have relevant case studies and experienced trainers or facilitators who can help you to start to develop knowledge through application and role plays. But here's the problem. Even if you have access to high quality training to help you start developing knowledge through application, it's not enough. Because the classroom environment is a safe and controlled space. And leadership doesn't happen in the classroom. In the real world, you're under pressure, and that's where your leadership is tested under fire. You're tested daily in conversations with people who disagree with you, when emotions are involved, and when someone underperforms. And in those moments, you don't fall back on what you learned. You fall back on your level of practice. And so, even if you understand leadership skills, but don't make it a point to actively practice them, then you're going to keep struggling with leading, managing, or supervising others, which leads to the next problem. When I run my leadership programs, I do my best to make it as relevant to the client's organization as possible. I get them to contextualize the case studies and role plays. I include their organization core values, learn about the background of the participants, and ensure my program fits into their overall learning journey. But you know what? Most leadership training is clean, structured, and predictable. It's a safe and controlled environment, but your workplace is not, and your team is not. People are messy, and the situations you encounter are often dynamic and unclear. So what works in the classroom doesn't perfectly line up with reality. I've had many participants, new supervisors and managers, who go through my program and tell me what you shared makes sense. But when I follow up with my client, their feedback is the same. Those same participants continue to struggle to apply in the workplace. You see, just like in the DIKW pyramid, leadership is not meant to remain at the information level. You can't survive as a leader just by knowing frameworks, concepts, and models. You have to apply them in your context and turn information into knowledge through lived experiences. That means applying it non-stop through the school of hard knocks until you finally get it. If you don't bridge that gap, then the training you receive stays in the classroom and your behavior remains the same. And even if you have access to high quality training that feels relevant, there's another problem. I run public leadership programs, the type where people from a range of organizations and backgrounds come together for a 1 or 2 days training. I give my very best each time and hope for their leadership success. Hope is the word. You see, you go for a 1 or 2 days training and learn a whole bunch of leadership concepts, models, and frameworks. How many do you actually remember once you walk out of the classroom? 1, 2, maybe 3 if you have a good memory. You forget very fast. And when you go back to your daily work with the pressure of meetings, deadlines, and emails, soon enough, what you learned fades. Leadership development is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It's repetition and reinforcement over a period of time. Because without them, you won't remember. And if you don't remember, you won't apply, and nothing changes. Let me pause here for a moment. If this is already describing your experience, please hit that like button so we can get this out to more leaders. Now, even if you remember the leadership concepts, models, and frameworks, there's another issue. You come back from training motivated and inspired, ready to try something new. Maybe communicate differently or coach your team to higher performance. But your work environment hasn't changed. Your boss still leads the same way. Your team expects the same behavior from you. Your work culture still rewards the same objectives, not your supposedly improved leadership. So what happens? You try once in the workplace and it feels uncomfortable. You don't get the response you expect. So slowly you go back to your old ways because environment is stronger than intention. And if your environment doesn't support your new behavior, meaning your boss expects something different from you after your training and talks with you about applying what you learned. Your team knows you have gone for training and is expecting you to inform them of changes to how you will lead them. And the work culture starts to recognize that good leadership is essential to organization success. If these three, along with others, are not present, then they'll erase whatever training you attended. Which brings us to the final reason. I always get my participants to write down what is the one takeaway they want to achieve from my leadership program. At the end of the program, I ask them if they've achieved that takeaway or gotten closer to solving it. So many people go for leadership training without knowing what they want to change. They attend because they are told to or because it sounds useful. And they don't define what must change in their leadership after the training program. So, after training, there's no direction, no focus, and no attempt to measure what they have improved. And when there's none of that, there's no change. Because you cannot improve something that hasn't been defined. So, now the question becomes, how do you know if your leadership training is already failing you? Let me give you 5 quick signs. If you recognize even 2 of these, then your training is really failing. 1. You feel inspired, but you don't know what to do the next time you go back to your workplace. 2. Everything sounds right in the classroom, but nothing feels practical. 3. No one, your boss, HR, or your team, follow-ups with you after the training. 4. Your boss never asks what you learned, makes an attempt to find out or discuss how you can apply what you've learned back to the team in your workplace. And 5. Within a few days, you're back to your old habits. If that's happening, it's not because the leadership training didn't work. It's because something is missing and most leaders don't realize it. Leadership is made up of art and science. Let's talk about the science first. The science of leadership is what you learn in the training program. Frameworks, models, concepts, and even leadership lingo such as difficult conversations, radical honesty, or performance management. As in the DIKW pyramid, which we mentioned earlier, the science is where you receive information and practice in a classroom setting to start developing knowledge on your leadership skills. How to structure a difficult conversation, give feedback in a way that feels natural, and manage performance so you can get reliable and sustainable performance. The science is important because without it, you won't have clarity on what good leadership looks like and what you have to do to structure it. But here's the problem. Most leaders stop here once they've gone for the training. They think once they understand in the classroom that they've learned leadership. It doesn't work that way because leadership is also an art. The art of leadership is practice, having real dynamic conversations with people and dealing with their emotions. It's leading in real life where people react differently from what you expected, when your timing and the tone of your voice matters. That's where leadership becomes difficult. Because now, it's not about what you learn from a classroom, it's about your judgment, experience, and adapting in the moment. And this is where most leadership training can't go. It can teach you the science and even give you some practice of what real life looks like. But it cannot fully replicate reality of your workplace and the people you work with. Training cannot give you the art. Only you can take the information from the classroom and develop it into knowledge through practice, mistakes, and reflection on what you could have done better. And so, if you have gone for leadership training but didn't improve after that, it's not because the training didn't work. It's because you didn't put in enough effort after the training and kept at it long enough to make the transition from science to art. And if you want more practical breakdowns like this on leadership, please consider subscribing to the channel because this is exactly what I do. I make leadership simple. So, what should you actually do to maximize your leadership training? Before you go for it, decide on the one leadership behavior you want to improve. For example, it might be fostering a stronger team spirit, giving better feedback, or just being more accepting of yourself as a leader. Not 2, not 3, just 1. During the training, don't try to learn everything because you won't remember them all anyway. You could try to relate every concept, framework, or model back to the one behavior that you want to improve on. Or better still, take a more focused approach on 1 or 2 ideas that you can actually use. Then after the training, and this is the most important part, start applying it at work the next day. Don't wait. Use your next real interaction as practice. You'll feel awkward, you won't be perfect, and that's okay. Because you're learning. And that's how the art of your leadership is built. And every time you have practiced it on real situations and people, reflect on what worked, what didn't, and what you will improve. Then keep repeating until weeks and months have passed when you're no longer nervous about that one leadership behavior. That's when you know you have finally locked in the new and improved behavior. And when that old leadership behavior no longer bugs you as much as it used to, then you know you're ready for the next leadership training. One improved behavior after another. That's how you develop as a leader. Because if you don't actively change the environment by constantly applying what you've learned from class, then your environment will erase your training. That's for sure. Leadership training doesn't fail because of the information on models, concepts, and frameworks. It fails because of these reasons. 1. Information isn't behavior. Information from a classroom doesn't change behavior. Only consistent application of the information in real life can lead to true behavior change. 2. No real-world context. No matter how great a leadership program is, nothing can replace reality. You have to go out there and practice with real people and in real situations to improve your leadership. 3. You have to consistently apply what you have learned from a classroom into the real world and keep doing so until that old behavior is replaced with the new. 4. Environment cues change. Your boss, your team, and even your workplace outcomes will not change on their own just because you've gone for some leadership training. You have to go and make those changes happen by applying what you have learned in class. 5. No clear outcomes. Most participants walk into a leadership program with no clear idea of what they want to take away from it. Unless you know which behavior you want to improve on, how will you be able to measure and improve on it? And you have to be mindful of these signs that tells you that failure is likely. 1. You're inspired, but you take no action after training. 2. The training makes sense, but it's not practical. 3. There's no follow-up back at work after the training. 4. You don't feel supported to change at your workplace. 5. Almost immediately, you are back to your old habits. There was a young participant in my class once, in his late 20s, who asked me what could he do to get over his nervousness about leading more experienced team members who were 20 years his senior. He felt it unnatural that he was their team leader when he was the younger person in the relationship. I shared with him that he needed to not get hung up over his age, because he later revealed that he had only been leading a team for 2 years and was still lacking in confidence. So I challenged him and asked if he would still feel the same lacking in confidence after leading for 5 years. He smiled and said, probably not. So I told him that what he's feeling now is probably a temporary thing, and to keep in mind that he was promoted to lead a team because others saw something in him. As I wrote the script for this video, I realized how I wish I had shared with him what I just shared with all you leaders watching this. That leadership is both an art and a science. Training gives you the science, the concepts, models, and frameworks, but only through consistent applied practice can you develop the art. That's the DIKW pyramid. Leadership is application, application, application. And that's the bigger lesson here. Because leadership is simple, but not easy. You can't just stay in the classroom. You have to do the uncomfortable work to practice, reflect, and improve until you actually get better. By the way, only some leadership topics make it into videos. And if you're tired of guessing your way through difficult leadership topics, I invite you to join our Leadership Made Simple newsletter. Every week, I share practical answers to real-world leadership topics. The link is in the description below where you can sign up. Before you go, let me leave you with this question. After your last leadership training, what resistance did you face in trying to apply what you've learned? Share it in the comments. Because it is in the journey of change that your real leadership learning happens. And while we are on the topic of leadership training, in addition to focusing on one behavior to improve on, you also need to develop certain key internal attributes in order to maximize your leadership potential. Learn more about them